Baby, let me tell you something. When I was 19 years old and walking around Langston College with my hot comb curls and a stubborn streak wider than the Mississippi, I crossed paths with a boy who swore he could break anybody's spirit. But he picked the wrong girl, asterisk. I share new life stories here every day, and I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Now, let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you love it. You keep listening till the end. Now listen here. Before I get deep into this story, go on and subscribe, 'cause chilly. You ain't ready for the mess I'm about to unfold. I remember that morning like I remember my mama's cornbread recipe. It was fall of 1978, leaves crackling under my shoes. The air carrying that sharp Oklahoma chill that made you wrap your sweater just a little tighter. I was new on campus, still trying to find my way around without looking like I was lost, even though Lord knows I was. College, for me, wasn't just about books. It was about survival. I came from a neighborhood where you learned early who to trust and who to leave standing right where they were. And I thought college would be different, full of sweet, educated folks, mimed in their business. MMA. I was wrong. That's when I first saw him, Derek Langston. Tall, smooth, athlete walking like the pavement moved out the way for him. Girls whispered when he passed. Boys followed him like he was the Pied Piper. He was the kind of young man who wore confidence like a second skin. And he used it to knock other people down. And baby, that boy sniffed out insecurity like a bloodhound. I was carrying my books, mindin' my good business. When somebody shoulder checked me so hard my notebooks flew like pigeons scattering. Papers everywhere, floating around like they had wings. I bent to pick them up. That's when I heard it, that low, smug voice. Well now, what we got here? A freshman who can't walk straight. I looked up. There he was, Derek, smiling. Like hurting folks was a hobby. His friends laughed. The way boys do when their leader performs. Loud, delighted. Like they were watching a circus. Now, wasn't raised to let anybody make a fool out of me. But I also wasn't raised to give every fool the satisfaction of my reaction. So I stood up slow, dusted my skirt, gathered my books, and I walked right past him like I didn't even know he existed. And honey, let me tell you that hurt him more than any insult I could have thrown. He wasn't used to being ignored. Not by girls, not by boys, not by professors, nobody. I got maybe 5 steps away before he called out behind me, "Hey, I'm to con to you." But I kept walking, head high. Heels tapping the pavement like a drumline practicing. He must have been shocked because the campus went quiet. Students turned to watch. You could have heard a fly cough. That quiet? That was the moment he decided I was his new target. Later that day, when I was walking back to the dorms, I heard footsteps behind me, slow, confident, familiar. I turned around, and there he was again, hands in his pockets, smirking like he had the whole world in his palm. "You think you better than me?" he asked. I laughed. Not scared, not impressed, just tired. "I don't think about you at all," I said. "Oh, baby." That sent him. He stepped closer like he expected me to back up. But I didn't move an inch before he could say another word. A sleek black Chevrolet Impala rolled right up beside us. Engine rumbling deep like thunder before a storm. The window slid down slow, revealing my Uncle Leon, legendary stunt driver, Hollywood wildman. And the only person Derek Langston truly feared without knowing why. Uncle Leon looked right at him and said, "Baby girl, you ready?" I smiled. "Sure am." Derek's smirk gone. Just like that, he finally realized. He'd picked on the wrong girl. Asterisk, now sugar. I wish I could tell you that Derek Langston took one look at my Uncle Leon sitting in that Impala and decided to leave me alone forever. I truly do. Life would have been peaceful. Classes would have been quiet. And I would have walked around campus like any normal young lady trying to keep her GPA above water, but trouble. Trouble always circles around boys who don't know the difference between respect and ego. When Uncle Leon drove me back to campus the next morning, his words sat heavy in my mind. "Baby girl," he said, tapping the steering wheel like a drummer. Some folks can't stand the sight of someone they can't intimidate. You stand strong and they've gone mistake that for a challenge. He was right. I wasn't naive, but I wasn't ready for how far Derek would go. Walking across the quad that morning, I noticed the looks first. Not the usual curious glances folks give a new student. No, these were the girl. What you done stirred up. Kind? Whispers traveled faster than the Oklahoma wind. I reached my history of civil rights classroom, and before I even sat down, a girl leaned over and whispered, "You really stood up to Derek yesterday." I smiled politely. "Depends who's askin'." She sucked her teeth. "Lord, girl." He mad. I shrugged like it didn't faze me, but inside I could feel the ground rumblin'. Derek wasn't just any bully. He was the unofficial king of that campus. A boy who'd been praised his whole life was now embarrassed in front of witnesses and humiliation. Phew! That's gasoline to the fire of a man who ain't never been told no. By lunchtime, things had escalated. I walked into the cafeteria, holding my tray, head high, shoulders steady. Derek's table sat dead center, the place for athletes, pretty boys, and folks who wanted to be seen. Soon as I stepped in, every head at that table turned. And there he was, Derek Langston, leaning back in his chair, arms folded, looking at me like I'd committed a crime by existing. I walked past him, minded my business. Didn't rush, didn't hide. Just moved with intention like my mama taught me. Then I heard it. Freshman queen. You still hiding behind that stunt driver of yours? Laughter exploded from his table. I stopped. I didn't turn. Not yet see. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any sass. But Derek? He needed noise to feel alive. You ain't tough, he continued, voice louder now. You just got lucky somebody famous cares enough to pick you up. That one earned him a chorus of, "Oh," from the folks around him. Slowly, slow enough to make him restless. I turned to face him. "You finished?" I asked. He smirked wide. "Not even close." I smiled, even though my heart thumped like a drumline. "Well, let me know when you're done talking nonsense so the rest of us can eat in peace." His smirk twitched just a little. A crack in the facade. Bullies hate being laughed at, but they hate being disregarded even more. I sat to eat, but that boy wasn't done. Later that afternoon, when I reached my dorm, my stomach dropped. My little bit of peace was covered in sticky notes, mean ones, nasty ones. Some childish, some downright cruel. 50, maybe 60% of them. I stood there in the hallway, holding my breath. Girls peeked from behind their doors, pretending not to look. Someone giggled. Someone whispered, but nobody helped. I peeled off each note slow, calm, collected. Like I was pulling thorns from a rose I refused to let die when I finished. I smoothed my dress and said to myself, ain't no way this boy know who he messin' with. 'Cause he didn't. Not yet. And oh baby, he was about to learn. Now listen. When I stood there peeling those hateful little sticky notes off my dorm door, I wasn't just removing paper. I was removing every fear I had ever carried since childhood. You know, folks think strength shows up loud, kicking, shouting, slamming doors, real strength. It's quiet. It's calm. It's the kind that lets you breathe slow while the world tries to suffocate you. That night, after the last note was gone, I went inside my room and sat on my bed for a long minute. Moonlight crept through my window like it was trying to comfort me. I ain't cry. I ain't tremble. I just inhaled deeply the way my grandmama taught me whenever life got too loud. My roommate, Trina, came in with her afro puffed out big and her eyes even bigger. "Girl, you okay?" "I'm fine," I told her. Because I was. At least that's what I told myself. She closed the door behind her, slid out her platform shoes, and sat beside me. "You know, Derek ain't gone stop, right?" I nodded. "I know, and you still ain't scared?" she asked. I smiled. "Baby, I've been fighting bigger devils than him since 8th grade. Trina sucked her teeth and leaned back. "Well, I'm just saying, you might want to keep yo uncle on standby." Oh, Uncle Leon was already 3 steps ahead. That man didn't do no thing without thinking 10 moves past the moment. And sure enough, the next day, he called me. "Baby girl, how's college life treating ya?" He started, voice smooth like a blues record. I gave the softest sigh. "It's treating me like a chew toy in a dog kennel." He paused. "That boy's still messing with you." "He ain't stopped." "Well," he said, his tone shifting low, "don't you let him turn you cold. Ya, here. Mean folks thrive when good folks start doubting themselves." I smiled. "I'm holding on." "You do that," he said. "And remember what I always told you? The truth got a way of walking right up to people who think they can outrun it." Little did I know, truth was already wearing its shoes. The following day, I walked onto campus with fresh curls, a mustard yellow blouse, and confidence stitched into my stride. Folks watched me. Some whispered. Some avoided my eyes. A few nodded like they respected my strength. But Derek saw me before I even reached the student center. He stood with his teammates, all of them big as linebackers and twice as loud. He crossed his arms, smirking like the devil signed his paycheck. "Well, well, well," he called out, "if it ain't Miss Untouchable." A few folks nearby turned their heads. I kept walking. "You must feel real bold now that your Hollywood uncle popped up." He continued when I didn't slow down. He stepped directly in my path, close enough for me to see that little vein throbbing in his temple. "You gone pretend I ain't talking to you?" he asked, voice low. I raised an eyebrow. "I ain't pretending. I just don't consider you important enough to pause for." His boys hollered behind him, but he didn't laugh. His smirk melted into something else. Something darker. "You tryna embarrass me again?" he growled. "No," I said sweetly. "You're doing that all by yourself." He clenched his jaw so hard I thought his teeth would crack. And then, as he leaned closer, a professor's voice cut through the moment. "Mr. Langston." He jerked back as Professor Davis approached. A tall, caramel-skinned woman with glasses that could slice a man's ego in half. "Is there a reason you're blocking this young lady's path?" she asked, arms folded. Derek straightened like a soldier caught sleeping on duty. "Just chatting with her, ma'am." Professor Davis didn't blink. "Don't let me see you chatting like that again." He mumbled something and stepped aside. I walked past him slow, so slow he could feel the sting of being. "Dismissed. But, honey, a storm always warns you before it breaks, and I felt that thunder rollin' now, baby. Let me tell you something I learned early in life. When a bully starts to get sloppy, it means they're scared, not powerful, and Derek Langston. Oh, that boy was shaken under that varsity jacket. But instead of tacking his warning from the universe and sitting down somewhere, he decided to double down on foolishness after Professor Davis stepped in that day. Derek walked around campus with a stiff jaw and wounded pride, like someone had snatched the crown off his head and dropped it in a mud puddle. Folks whispered whenever he passed, and if there's one thing a king can't stand, it's losing the throne that evening. Just as the sun dipped low and turned the sky that dusty orange color Oklahoma is famous for, I was walking back from the library with my books hugged tight to my chest. Mama always told me to keep my eyes open at dusk. "Trouble likes shadows," she'd say. And, baby, that woman ain't never lied. I turned the corner toward the girls' dorm. And that's when I saw it, my door again, defaced. This time, not with sticky notes, but with marker. Thick black letters streaked across the wood like somebody was trying to carve their anger into my space. I stopped cold. My breath didn't catch, but my heart, it clenched, tight. Trina poked her head out from her room down the hall. "Oh, Lord." Again. I swallowed. "Yeah, again." She stepped out, hands on hips. "Girl, you need to tell somebody." "I will," I said, but not who she thought. I walked into my room and closed the door behind me. That's when the heaviness hit. Not fear, frustration. A deep, simmering frustration that makes your spirit stand taller, not shrink. This boy didn't want to scare me. He wanted to break me. But baby, when you grow up black, female, and determined in the 70s. Life tries to break you before you even learn cursive. So Derek was late to the party. I sat on the edge of my bed, pulled in a deep breath, and called Uncle Leon. He picked up on the second ring. "Talk to me, sweetheart." "They wrote on my door," I said, voice flat. Silence. Then a slow, low exhale. Ham, which one you want? Advice or backup?" I smiled despite myself. "Vice? For now? Good. 'Cause backup can get real messy real fast." He paused. "Baby, folks show you who they are when they think nobody's seeing. But trust me, people been seeing him. And sooner or later, he gone mess up in front of the wrong pair of eyes." He was right. I could feel it. The next day proved it. When I arrived on campus the next morning, the whispers were louder. Folks grouped in tight circles, holding little sheets of paper, eyebrows raised, mouths covered. I walked faster. As I reached the student center, I saw the wall, the one every student passed, the one you couldn't avoid if you tried. Pinned to it were printouts. Dozens of screenshots, messages, ugly ones, cruel ones, the kind a boy sends when he thinks he's untouchable. Every disgusting thing Derek had said about students. Professors, teammates all plastered like a billboard expo sign. His rotten character. Gasps rippled through the hallway like wind-hitten wheat fields, and then there he stood, frozen, face pale, hands trembling like old screen doors. His kingdom collapsed. He looked around, panicked, until his eyes landed on me. "You did this," he whispered, voice cracking like cheap glass. I folded my arms. I didn't have to. And baby, the truth stung him worse than any punch, because he knew he destroyed himself. Baby, when a campus full of young folks smells scandal, they gather faster than bees around sweet tea. And that morning, the air at Langston College was thick with it. Every hallway hummed with whispers. Every classroom buzzed with rumors. And poor Derek Langston. Phew! That boy walked around looking like the world had smacked him, crossed the face, and left a handprint. I ain't gonna lie to you, a part of me wanted to feel satisfied. Wanted to let that pride rise in my chest and say, "That's what you get messing with me." But the older you get, the more you realize watching someone fall ain't always pretty, especially when they hit the ground hard. I saw him that afternoon standing alone by the vending machines, staring at them printouts someone had shoved into his locker. The swagger he used to walk with. Gone, his shoulders slumped. He looked smaller, not in body but in spirit. His teammates passed by him without stopping. Girls who once chased after him now crossed the hall to avoid being associated. Even the professors eyed him with that mixture of disappointment and quiet judgment. He looked like a king who woke up crownless. But don't you worry, sugar. He still had one spark of pride left. And that spark was looking for me. Later that evening, when the sky was bruised purple and the cicadas were starting to sing their night songs, I stepped outside the dorm to get some fresh air. And there he was, Derek waiting. He wasn't leaning, wasn't smirking, wasn't flexing. Just standing there, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes dark. I stopped, took a breath, lifted my chin. "What you want, Derek?" He swallowed hard. "I didn't post those." "I know," I said. His head jerked up. You do." I nodded slow. "I told you I ain't gotta touch you for the truth to find you." He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath all day. "Everybody hates me now." I raised an eyebrow. "Everybody? Or just the folks who finally saw what you've been hiding?" He looked away, mouth tight. "You don't understand. This wasn't supposed to happen. Now, baby, I could have walked away. I could have left him standing there drowning in his own mess. But wisdom makes you pause. You know," I said gently, "pain don't surprise me as much as who we become when we feel it." He flinched, eyes narrowing. "I wasn't trying to hurt you." "Yes, you were," I said plainly. "You saw somebody you couldn't push around, and that made you angry. That's the truth." His shoulders sagged. "I'm not a bad person." I tilted my head. Are you sure? The wind blew between us, cool and sharp. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His silence told me everything. Finally, he whispered, "Why didn't you fight back?" I smiled, not pity, not triumph, but understanding, because I don't fight with boys who use fists to cover fear. I wait for their truth to show itself. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, for the first time since I met him, he nodded just once. Slow, like he understood. "I'm sorry," he murmured. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't hear him, but because I needed to hear that sorry settle inside him, not just spill from his lips. "You've got a lot of fixing to do," I finally said, "and none of it got anything to do with me." He swallowed again. "I know." Then he turned and walked away. And baby, that walk wasn't prideful, wasn't angry, wasn't performative. It was the walk of a boy stepping toward growing up. But little did I know, there was still one more chapter in this story. One I never saw cumin. Asterisk, baby. When you're young, you think the world is shaped by fists, or fast cars, or loud voices telling you who's in charge. But when you get older, you realize the real battles, the ones that change you, happen right here, points to heart. After Derek apologized, life on campus didn't magically turn sweet. Whispers still followed him like shadows. Professors watched him with caution. Some folks giggled behind his back, talk enjoying his downfall the same way they once fed his ego. I watched too. Not with joy. Not with pity, but with a quiet knowing. See, humiliation can make a person dangerous, or it can make them grow. Turns out Derek chose the hard road, the one with growth on the end of it. 2 days after our talk outside the dorms, Professor Davis asked me to stay after class. "Miss Cole," she said, steepling her fingers, "I heard about your situation with Mr. Langston." I raised an eyebrow. "Word travels fast, huh?" She gave a small smile. It always does in communities where folks pretend to mind their business. I couldn't help but laugh softly. Then her expression softened. "If you need the administration involved, I will support you." Now, baby, I want you to understand I had every right to say yes. Every right to drag that boy before the dean and watch the system swallow him whole. But something in Derek's face that night stuck with me. The remorse. The collapse of a persona he'd spent years perfecting. The weight of consequences he never planned to meet. So I said, "Thank you, Professor. But I think he's learning enough right now." Her eyes lingered on me, thoughtful. "Strength," she said, "isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the grace you extend to someone who wouldn't have given it to you." And that, baby, hit me deep. A week passed with no drama, no threats, no scribbles, no smirks thrown my way. It was peaceful, the kind of peaceful you only appreciate after a storm. Then one afternoon, as I was heading to the campus commons, I saw Derek sitting alone on a bench. No teammates, no girls, no audience. Just him, legs stretched out, arms draped over the backrest, eyes fixed on nothing. Now, I could have kept on walking. Lord knows I had plans. But something in my spirit tugged at me, so I walked over. He noticed me, but didn't straighten up, didn't flinch. Just looked tired. "Human, you holding up?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Trying. Trying counts," I said gently. He huffed a laugh. "I used to think being feared meant being respected." "Yeah," I nodded. "A lot of boys confuse the two." He looked at me then, not with pride, not with pain, but with honesty. "I ain't been the person I want to be." "Then change," I said. "Ain't nobody stopping you but you." Something flickered in his eyes, not weakness. Realization. "Why'd you let me apologize?" He asked quietly, "Why didn't you ruin me?" I sat beside him, exhaling slow. "Because, baby, life already did that for you. And sometimes the fall teaches better than the punishment." We talked for a little while. Not long, just enough. I didn't leave there with a new friend. And he didn't leave there forgiven overnight. But we left with something more important. Understanding, baby, now that I'm older. Looking back on those college days from my little porch with my warm tea. I realized that moment didn't just change him. It changed me. It taught me that strength ain't about fighting. It's about knowing when not to fight. It taught me that people hurt others when they hurt inside, and they heal when they finally face the mirror. And it taught me that the quiet girl nobody expects to stand tall. She's the one who shakes the room. Asterisk, I share new life stories here every day, and I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Thank you. Sometimes life takes turns we never expect. Every person in this story carried their own pain, their own choices, and their own consequences. Maybe you saw yourself in one of them more. Maybe it reminded you of someone you once knew. What do you think happened next? What would you have done if you were in their place? If you have any questions about what happened to the other characters, or if you want me to share more about them, just comment below. I read every message you leave, and your thoughts truly mean a lot to me. And if this story touched your heart, inspired you, or even made you think differently, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep sharing stories that move people, open minds, and remind us we're all human. At the end of the day, your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for watching, for feeling, and for being part of this journey. More powerful stories are coming soon. Stay tuned and stay kind.